Well, good evening, folks. Some of our regulars are not here yet. Presumably they'll be tuning in. It's always hard to predict, but I am a great believer in start on time, end on time, so I don't necessarily wait. You just keep going. Uh, let me, oh, here comes Jack. Okay, good evening, Jack. Welcome. And Jessica will not make it tonight. I don't know about Ed. I don't know about some of the others that have come, but we've got it recording. And so let's go ahead and start what we're doing. Okay, where did my, uh, here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Good evening, Jack.
Hi,
Hi, Jack.
Troy's iPad.
Can everybody see my screen? It's being shared.
Yes.
Yes, tonight we
Well,
can.
remind me, I know what I have to do. I have to change, when I do share, I have to also share sound. I forgot that part. Well, remind me to share sound when we need it. For right now, we don't need it. Well, welcome back to class 3 of Christianity in Conversation with Other Religious Beliefs. And tonight we're looking at Hinduism. And our next, just with our usual slides that are always here, you had a picture of me outside of Emmanuel to know that this is a program from Emmanuel. And then since I'm offering it from home, here's a picture of my home and from the Phil Singer farm here in Deer Park, Maryland. And now, compared to other weeks, now it's pitch black out there. And just some mutual expectations as a reminder that we start and end on time. When you're not speaking, I ask you to remain muted so background noise doesn't come in, and we try to have it so one person talks at a time. Take care of your needs as needed. So if you got to go to the bathroom, do that, or get a piece of food or whatever. Just don't disrupt things. Just do what you got to do. Keep an open mind, and we show respect and courtesy to others, since we may be having different perspectives, and contribute without dominating. So if you've talked and you want to talk again, ask, has everybody else had a chance to talk before I talk again? And can I invite someone in so that we can hear from different people's perspectives when it's time to have discussion? And then I've been framing this class in terms of 3 questions that I learned from an Episcopal priest named Susanna Singer, who's was a professor at Church Divinity School of the Pacific. And I don't think she meant them in the way I'm doing them. I keep meaning to ask her. I took them into something else, but she used to say, when you try to understand a parish, ask what's going on, and you have to ask what's really going on. Then you have to ask what's really, really going on. And I reframe that from my classes to ask that this is 3 things we're looking at when when we try to understand our world. We try to understand what we can observe using our 5 senses and using our knowledge. And then we can go deeper to ask what's really going on. We can try to understand what's happening beneath the surface. Personal issues, the psychological ones, the political ones, the economic issues. But a 3rd level is asking what's really, really going on? What's the biggest picture possible? What's ultimate reality? What's really real? What is that which determines what everything else is? And when we get into that, then we're getting into the area of spirituality and the area of religion, which religions try to offer a picture of ultimate reality and how we fit in it. And so we were looking at religions, and so far we've looked at religion in general and a little bit at Christianity, and we looked at the religions of the first peoples or indigenous peoples last week. We asked, what are its sources? Where and when did it start? What was the background? What was the context? And does it have any sources of revelation it claims? And this is not the only way to do it. This is just a way I find helpful.
Mhm.
What does it believe about ultimate reality? What does it say is ultimately real and true? What is the way things really are in the world? Then, and typically every religious system identifies that there's a problem for human beings. What's the human problem? What is it that keeps us from being happy in the way we'd like to be, fulfilled in the way we'd like to be? And what is the way to get beyond that? What kind of guidance or path does it offer as you navigate your way through life? So that's just a review of things we've done that we've been doing each week. So now I want to talk about Hinduism, which is the oldest of the like major big world religions that have lots of people in them. And it is very old, and it began in the India and what is also present day Pakistan. And it's a fascinating phenomenon. So looking at sources here. Oh, why is someone trying to call me now? Potential spam. Goodbye, potential spam. Okay. And first of all, it's not one coherent, organized institution in the sense you think of the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, it's not like there's an organization of Hindus that speaks for all Hindus and tells you what it teaches and everything else. It's very old. Some of its oldest texts go back. There's debate about their age. Western scholars think they go to about 1500 before the Common Era.
Wow.
Some Indian scholars believe they're much older than that. And there's talk about the relationship between the Aryans who invaded from the north into India, into the Indus Valley, and ultimately populated Europe, and the Vedas. Aryan is supposed to mean a noble person. It's not a racial category, but it's been used that way by white supremacists and racists like Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. And the Vedas were written in the ancient language of Sanskrit. They are the foundation of upper caste Brahmanic Hinduism, which we'll talk about, but not necessarily all forms of what we call Hinduism. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can get to the other document. Let's see. Let's try this again. And because I have a map to show you. So I want to go over to, how do I share what's on? I have to call up stuff on. I'm trying to not make mistakes I made last week and to make new ones of how to do it. Where'd Zoom go? Okay. Last week I was trying to share what I had. So here we are. Okay. So now if I hit share, where'd everything go? And to figure out how to get to entire screen, application windows. If I go over to here, can you see a YouTube thing?
No.
No. How do I get this to? I did it last week and it kept not showing stuff to you, but this should be easy to do, and I'm not sure why it's not. How do I get to the darn video clips? Can you see this?
Yes, we can
Okay.
see.
Yeah.
Okay, here. Can you see Indus Valley?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so this is just a map of where in India the Indus Valley is. And it's one of the great ancient civilizations along with Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. So it's in what now would be northwestern India and Pakistan. It's just to give you an idea what it's from. And there's a link to this in your there's a link to it in your in the PowerPoint, which I can send to you.
Okay.
Can you see the slides again, the PowerPoint?
No.
How does this work?
Still looking at the map of the Indus Valley.
Yeah. If I stop share and start share again. Every time I think I've got this, I haven't got it. Let's see. Have you got the PowerPoint now?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
All right.
Yes.
So from current slide. So we talked about that, and so there's a link there to get to the Indus Valley stuff. And there are other scriptures. This is just to throw out names you might hear. Some are considered fully divinely inspired. Some, perhaps, more just good things. But the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, and the Upanishads, which are believed to be written between 600 and 100 BCE. So around the time a lot of development in Judaism, and right before Christianity shows up. So what does Hinduism overall believe? And by the way, if anyone got questions so far or comments, I want to have lots of discussion and I want to get sort of the basic stuff in, but if people have questions, let me know. So their concept, they don't necessarily believe in God in the same way that we do. The concept for ultimate reality is called Brahman. It's unseen, all-pervading reality. It's unknowable. And this is one of their scriptures. Him the eye does not see, nor the tongue express, nor the mind grasp. And it's believed that within ourselves, there's a soul, there's a deep part of us, a subtle self or a soul, that's called the Atman. And your Atman is different from being John Reardon or Jack Slocum or Carol Ann or Troy. It's, we think of ourselves as our names and our projects, are what we do for a living, what we hope for, what we desire, what we're afraid of, how we spend our time. It's arguing those things are just out there floating. But underneath that, so that's what in psychology we call the ego, your sense of who you think you are. But there's a deeper self, and that is the subtle soul within you. And their big insight is that Brahman is Atman. In other words, the deepest cell within you is itself Brahman.
Yeah.
And that all the individual things are just differences of appearance, even illusion. And there's a quote from the Chandogya Upanishad. In the beginning, there was existence alone, one only, without a second. He, the one, thought to himself, let me be many, let me grow forth. Thus, out of himself, he projected the universe, and having projected out of himself the universe, he entered into every being. All that is has itself in him alone. Of all things, he is the subtle essence. He is the truth. He is the self. And that art thou. That the divine spark, the divine thing, it's in you, that we're like drops that belong in the river, but it's all the water, and all of Brahman is contained in you, and you fade into all of Brahman. And along with this idea is the idea of dharma, which means something different in Buddhism, but it means in Hinduism, it means the right order of all things, the way it's supposed to be.
That's really interesting.
Oh, it's really fascinating, and it's very complicated. And there's different systems and approaches within Hinduism. One is called Samkhya, which is dualistic, and it's believed to be the oldest one in India. And dualism means you believe that there's a difference between flesh and spirit. There's a difference between me and you. And so they talk about two states of reality: the Purusha, which is the self, eternally wise, pure, and free, beyond change, and Prakriti, which is the cause of the material universe. And so what Samkhya says, all our suffering comes from our false confusion of Prakriti with Purusha. And thus we need a dualistic understanding of life so we can distinguish between the ultimate transcendent reality of Purusha and the temporary appearances of Prakriti, which in other words saying we have to get past our own ego, what we think of as ourselves, what we think is important, whether it's food or drink or drugs or sex or money or fame or, politics, whatever. That's all. We forget that the eternal reality is underneath all that. And that stuff just comes and goes. So that's one approach within Hinduism. And the one you've probably heard more about within this country is Advaita Vedanta, which is non-dualism, and which means that we are not two, which means there's no such thing as Jack separate from John. That we may be not one, so it might be, we won't necessarily say Jack and John are both illusions, Now, some Advaita Vedanta would say that, but that we're not two either, that I'm part of you and you're part of me. We're all part of the same self, this Brahman that
Mhm.
lives in Atman. And so, some forms are monists, which believe that all reality is one, that all separation between beings is an illusion, or the term is Maya, and that the visible universe is Maya, the power by which the absolute shields itself. So it's similar ideas in some ways to the dualism, in the sense that you have to get to what's real, which is underneath what we think is real, what we think is important. And Shankara, one of the noted philosophers, talked about, we ask what things are, and like you pick up a coil or a rope and we think it's a snake. We see it in the dark. We don't know what things really are. I think he also uses the one of, like, there's an elephant and everyone's touching a different part of the elephant and they think it's different things.
Well, they're blind. Men are blind, right?
They're blind in this case. They can't see, but they don't realize it's this one reality. And then there are gods within Hinduism. In fact, there are 320 million gods and goddesses.
Hmm.
And so it's a non-jealous that they'll just take on new gods all the time. There is a belief in, so there are gods which become manifestations of Brahman and different aspects of Brahman. And so within that, there are Shaktas worship a mother goddess, the Shaivites worship the god Shiva, and the Vaishnavites worship the god Vishnu. And I have a little thing, if I could figure out how to do it, to show you a little thing on the different Hindu gods. How I do it without losing you, I do not know, but let's see. If I have to stop sharing, then I start sharing again. Share sound. Oh. Let me go down to, let's see, what's this? Can you see a YouTube video?
Yes.
Okay, let me know if you can hear it.
Yes.
Good.
To Hindus, there's not one God, there are millions.
Busy little thoroughfare.
In the holy city of Varanasi, I'm meeting historian Binda Paranjape to find out how Hindus see their gods.
At every corner of the lane, and just you see anywhere and you see a shrine, and no corner they can leave without having a god there. So like we have got this small little shrine here, and it has got that elephant-headed god, Ganesha.
Ganesha.
Yeah. It's a god, removes the obstacles.
Removes obstacles.
Yeah.
Hindu deities come in many forms. Some are male, some female, some are part human, part animal. Each one has its specific powers.
So she's a goddess of disease. So
Disease.
So when you're deceased, your body gets inflamed. Then you invoke her, and
Okay.
she sends the cool breeze,
Right.
and the body gets cool.
All right. Here's a question for you. You've got a choice of how many?
Millions.
Millions of gods. How do you choose?
Usually it's the family. Each family has got one family deity, and that is passed on to the next generation. Or sometimes in the times of distress, one goes to a god and say, or goddess, that please take me out of this difficult times, and forever I'll worship you as my personal god or goddess.
Life is of little value in Rome. Living in the shadow of the rich and powerful.
So that's
I've come to India to entirely new religion.
so that just gives you a flavor of it. Let me somehow I have to do this to get back to the slide thing.
Wow, you're almost efficient at that.
Almost proficient. I was good at it when I was teaching, but I feel like the rules have changed. And we used to have I forget what it was called, Blackboard or one of those other programs that everything organized itself on that you could go in and out of. So this is just a lot of extra detail about, Shaktas, or the worship of the feminine, of the goddess. And so often they're seen as local deities. They're interested in the village. They could be represented by many different things. And Durga is like the beautiful woman, and Kali is the fierce form, a destroyer of evil. She's portrayed dripping with blood, carrying a sword and a severed head, because destruction is seeming to have a role of a means of transformation. And there's other terms here, but and the Shivites worship different aspects of the deity, but the oldest system, so the deity is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, almost like a trinity, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. And Shiva's the destroyer, but the destroyer, it's the idea of like a cleansing forest fire. So things that are destructive are being led to make things new again. And so destruction is part of what it does, although Shiva is seen as the totality of all that, of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And then another group are known as Vaishnavites. Oops. And Vishnu is the tender, merciful deity, the healer. And so when they talk about like Hare Krishna is an avatar, like Krishna appearing in Vishnu appearing in human forms. Rama is another one. And the Mahabharata tells of Krishna, and the Ramayana tells of Rama. And Vishnu sends avatars to intervene at the end of world cycles. And if you've ever heard of the Bhagavad Gita, that is comes out of the Mahabharata. And and I'm not getting into every detail. I just want to give you a picture of things. Now, am I losing y'all? Is this too much?
No, it's okay.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. I haven't lost anyone yet. Good. And so what's the problem? Our problem is when we violate Dharma, the overall moral and good order of the universe, we are stranded in illusions and pain and meaninglessness. And we then acquire a negative kind of karma. Karma is actions and the consequences of action. You've probably heard a lot about karma, is a common word. And the idea is basically the bottom line, a principle of karma is whatever goes around comes around. Whatever I do at some point is going to come back on me. If I am generous and loving, I'm going to experience generosity and love in the world. If I am selfish and violent, I'm going to find selfishness and violence. Whatever I do is coming back on me. And the belief is that we're in a wheel called samsara, of reincarnation, that we live many, many times as humans and sometimes as animals, as other things. Oh, I forgot the one video I wanted to show you all. Anyhow, I'll find a way to do it. And reincarnation, it's the idea is that whatever I do, good or bad, brings me closer or away from a good life. And it's run by karma. And so it's not just within this life, but what becomes of me afterwards. And the goal of life is moksha, which is the liberation from rebirth, the cycle of rebirth. You merge with absolute reality. You're limited from space and time and matter. You're in this immortal absolute. But in the meantime, we go round and round and round. And our life now is determined by what we did the last time, and the time before that, and the time before that. Or were we working our way up or down? And part of that, I don't know how many of you have heard of the caste system, that there's a belief that, people at different social classes within India, that those social classes were determined, you were born into a caste based on your karma, based on what you'd done before. And so you go from the people at the very top are the Brahmins, the priests, and the philosophers, the intellectuals. Then you have the Kshatriyas, nobility, kings, warriors, vassals. Then you have farmers and merchants, and the Vaishyas. You go down to the Shudra, the manual laborers and the artisans, and then below it's the subcaste, the untouchables or Dalits. who are outcasts. They're the communities we don't. They do the work that no one else will do. That gets them ritually unclean, sweeping streets, working with leather from the skins of dead cows,
Mm.
moving human waste, and it's and Gandhi started referring to them as Harijans, the children of God, and the caste system was overturned in India in 1948, but it still affects society, just as we had all kinds of civil rights laws passed in the 1960s, and we still have a racial caste system in this country.
Right, right.
Less than we used to, perhaps, and with more things against it, but it hasn't gone away.
So would you say that they believe in fate?
It's a kind of fate, yeah, but it's not imposed. You make your fate, but you make your fate across lifetimes. And so, yeah, the difference, I think, Christianity is I can be saved by mercy. Hinduism, you're going to keep doing this till you get it right.
Yeah.
That we go around and around until we learn. And until we finally are freed from the cycle.
But for this lifetime, if you're an untouchable, you're an untouchable. You can be
Yes.
a good person, but nothing's going to change until your next lifetime.
Exactly. It's not going to change this lifetime. And I just saw a video, I forget someone said that you could become prime minister, but you're still an untouchable. I mean, even if within the thing you're still seen as different. I don't know if you remember Henry Louis Gates. This is back in the early years of the Obama presidency, who was a professor at Harvard and has a lot of connections in Cumberland. He's part of the Gates family from Cumberland. And he does a lot with people on their racial backgrounds, and he's a major scholar. He got back from a trip somewhere to his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and couldn't find his keys. So he broke into his own house in the rich neighborhood. Someone called, it's a black man breaking into a house. The cop went to arrest him and was not believing that it was his house. And that's an example that here's a man who has money, who has prestige, who has accomplishment, but all of a sudden he's just another black man treated with suspicion. And that's how caste works. It's like he hasn't, that's still the label that goes on somebody, even if they make it big. At some level, it's floating around in there. And that's how castes work.
These caste systems seem to, I think it's Karen Armstrong writes about this. These caste systems seem to be a artifact of a large civilization that practices intense agriculture. We have different layers of control and social, those. It has to do with the kind of world that they live in, and it's somewhat shaped by religion. But I can't but help but think there's so many connections between Hinduism and, say, Christianity and Judaism because of the ideas of there being one holy thing that is we cannot really comprehend, but it's there.
Yeah. There are places where the systems meet and places where they don't. And
yes,
one example, first, how would the caste system change compared to how most Christians would see the existence of different social classes, or when we ask why are people poor? And how would this change the way someone who's a Hindu might view a poor person?
That they deserve to be poor.
Exactly. The idea they did something to deserve that. So their job is to work through your dharma, in life is to live out the caste you're in, and hopefully things will get better for you next time. But it is very much the idea is that where we are, you deserve it. Now, I'm not saying that's absent. I mean, in Christian societies, there'd be a lot of, well, God put you to be where you are, and it's the will of God, so you can't change it. And it was people like Karl Marx. Well, both capitalism and Marxism tried to change that, saying, no, you can make your way in the world. But the idea that you're born inherently better than some people was very strong. There's remnants of it, like the British royal family.
Well, these caste systems are, in a way, it looks like they're ways of not changing the social order.
Oh, they often are. Yeah, they're a way of keeping it.
Reinforcing
Yeah.
an evil social order. you know, in which some people have more power and money and others do not, which differs very much from the first peoples we were studying last week, where there's a lot of equanimity among people in the tribe, or equality. Once these large civilizations tend to grow up, there becomes this stratification, and also which women are really seen as second citizens and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the beauty of these ideas of I'm thinking about St. Paul talks about in Colossians. I may not have this right. You correct me, Father, but St. Paul says he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. That's very similar to that idea.
The idea of that incarnation, well, you could talk about the Amen, that Jesus is the one who is one with Brahman, with his God. There is a lot of similarity. I mean, when you get really precise with it, there's still differences, but that idea of, you know, when Jesus says, "To have seen me, you've seen the Father. The Father and I are one." I mean, you can bring some of this non-dualism into Christianity. And Jesus is always praying that we may be one. And so we're part of the body of Christ. And so we're not just us separately. I mean, that's more of a modern libertarian idea that you are you and I'm me, and we have nothing in common unless we choose to have a transaction. That whereas we actually belong to each other. You know, Paul says we are members of one another. And but within Christianity, we've come to the point to often it was used like, well, God made people to be poor or rich, so that's just God's will. And within Hinduism, both times we've come to rebel against it and to see it differently. I think, and that's certainly, there's a lot of room within India fighting against caste system. There is a video on it here which you can watch, but I think I'm going to move on. I want to get some of the
where does the idea of compassion or love enter into the Hindu faith?
Well, that's an interesting, because compassion and love, well, love is really a very Christian idea. And Buddhism has an idea of compassion, but I don't know if it means the same thing to them exactly as what love means to Christians. And I'm not sure. I think some of it is, I think you increase your dharma by showing compassion. I mean, it seems to me that by being generous to the poor, you're still helping yourself for the next life. That by, but the idea being that sooner or later everyone gets a fair shot might change that. It's an interesting. I'd like to talk to some people who are actually Hindu. But I did want to stop. There's a video I didn't. Whoops. What did I just do? I forgot the video I really wanted to call up. So let me find. I know how to get it. And this is a song by the Indigo Girls. Are all of you familiar with the Indigo Girls?
No.
The music, yes.
Yeah, they are a duo of two lesbian folk singers in folk rock, been around since the 80s, very intelligent lyrics. And this is a song about Galileo as the image of the one who lived the perfect life and was released. And it's a song about reincarnation. And I encourage you just to watch the video, listen to the words, and watch the little signs on it, because it's an imagination exercise to imagine what kind of lives could I have had. Can you hear that? I'm curious what jumped out at you of the different, either from the lyrics or from all these like hypothetical past lives that they may or may not have had.
I would make a terrible Hindu.
Why is that?
I'm not a terribly patient person, but to spend your whole life pigeonholed through no fault of your own in this life, but expected to keep looking past and never be seen as anything different, no matter how hard you try or what good you do.
It'll help you next time.
I'm not buying that.
Yeah. Anyone else have things that jumped out at you of the things they showed? To me, I like that song because it's kind of it's a way to get into the idea of reincarnation. I mean, I looked at it, I like that. I was mindless and gorgeous. It was fun. And I thought, because I kept thinking, when do I get a life like that? That sounds like
Yeah.
fun, just because I've spent my entire life being a constant thinker and pondering and making things complicated and hard for myself. And I envy the people that just like go out and have fun and are mindless and gorgeous. And I thought maybe that's what I did last time, and maybe that's why I'm like it this time. That's how I wound up mindful and not gorgeous or whatever. So I think, wouldn't it be fun just to have a one superficial fun life? You know, be like a Barbie doll or whatever. And,
Yeah.
But if you don't know their inside, are they happy?
no, you don't. Yeah. According to this one, that one was fun. It was mindless and gorgeous. It was fun. And well, of course, I liked I was insignificant. I was just, and the other one, just I did wrong. Is there a life where I did evil? And then the idea that you could be a geisha, you could be dust on a Bible, you could be a
A
cow.
bear cub.
What's that?
Yeah.
Bear cub.
Bear cub. Yeah, it'd be more fun. But the idea is, what do we do to get? And of course, the phrase, "How long till my soul gets it right?" Can any human being ever reach that kind of light?
Right.
I call on the
yeah.
resting soul of Galileo, king of night vision, king of insight.
Yeah.
And these Galileo becomes their image of the enlightened soul.
Mhm.
That and it's like, how do we get there? And so I find that which I love the Indigo Girls. They're probably my favorite musicians.
I like their music. Was he executed, Galileo?
He was not. No, he had to recant something, and then he supposedly muttered under his breath, "But it still moves, the sun." So he was disciplined and tried and all kinds of stuff. He was not executed, I don't believe.
I think he was imprisoned for life, but I don't remember him being
He
executed.
was not.
Yeah.
No, he was shown where he would be tortured to death, so he recanted.
Yes.
He believed that I think it was the Earth revolved around the sun, or something like that.
Something shocking like that. Yeah.
Which
And
went against the I can't think of the word, the Ptolemaic view of the universe. It went against that, which was kind of embraced by the Catholic Church, where the Earth was the center of everything, and
yeah.
he said no.
Well, the Bible speaks that way, and so, but when you began looking at science and saying, well, it doesn't seem to be the way the Bible says it is, that became, now by this point in history, we just say, well, the Bible's speaking poetically based on the science they had at their time. What matters is the divine message. But at the time, that was a major crisis for religion. Just as like some of the stuff we have about gender and stuff like that, I think we're at a moment now that they were at about, whether the Earth orbited the sun or not. When we came up with, with evolution, we came up with the insights of Freud. Each time new insights come up, it makes the faith wonder, is it still true? And eventually it all gets worked out, but it causes a lot of anxiety, which is where you see a lot of conservative Christians going, there are two genders and two only, and it's got to be this or that, as we heard in our, as one person said in our Bible study today, it was very much back, and there's this, but there's a feeling, well, that goes against the Bible whereas part of it is, as with everything else, are we taking the Bible as a scientific source of explanation, or do we look for the meaning under it and continue to explore what gender means based on newly evolving knowledge? But we're at that point where it becomes a crisis for faith in society when some people nudge it, and which is a very interesting thing. So we're still
there's that thing that you're talking about, kind of getting back to the discussion about compassion and love. And in the Hindu universe, if you do something that's an act of compassion, it might give you a chit later on.
Yes, and it's possible. I think it's possible the karma can affect you within this life as well.
Well, the thing is that if you're just
to live out your dharma, I have to be a really good
doing it so you can increase your later life, rather than doing it just because you want to do it out of the goodness of your heart without any expectation of anything.
Yeah,
which I think is more the Christian view. I may be wrong, but it's sort of utilitarian aspect of living a good life, but then you can come back, as a better person, or I don't know.
Well, interesting illustration if you've ever seen the movie Groundhog Day.
No.
With Bill Murray. Yeah, it was from the 1980s. He plays a weatherman who's sent to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, to tell the story of Punxsutawney Phil on Groundhog Day, and he's a selfish kind of loutish person, and he keeps waking up and it's still Groundhog Day. He lives it again and again. And at the beginning, he just feels like he's stuck, and then he begins to have fun with it and try to take advantage of it. And then he gets bored with that. And then he gets despair and he tries to kill himself. And no matter what he does, he comes back into the same day. It's only when he learns how to love that he's set free.
Oh, wow.
It's a
Wow.
profound movie.
Hmm.
It's a wonderful movie. I've seen
Yes.
it many, many times.
Yeah, I have too. I used to show it to my students.
I'll have
Is
to
it
look
life-
it up. It's
Life imitates art far more often than art imitates life.
Exactly. And here's so just in the path forward, what do we do? Again, we're trying to get good karma. We're trying to get there. So Dharma, you carry out your duties for the sake of the social and cosmic order. So if you're a warrior or you're a merchant or you're a Dalit, whatever you do that. You carry out that duty. And so you could hurt your karma by fighting against it. You're supposed to just go in there and do that. And so you're looking for three things. Artha is success in worldly activities, so wealth, and kama is love and sensual pleasure and aesthetic expression. So when you're the Kama Sutra, it's the guide about love. As they say, Christianity says love your neighbor. Kama Sutra is a little more specific and gives you instructions.
Yeah.
And moksha, the liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth, is the end of all the other goals. You're in this place, and a Brahmin, sometimes the very rich people at the end become sannyasins at the end, which is you almost become a monk. They withdraw from regular life. They go away from their spouse and their family, wander alone and stay in a temple and live with nothing. As part of that final letting go of everything.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you're stripped away from what you had. And so having had this pleasure life, that's like the final step to help you enter in. And so the ultimate goal is this moksha. You're liberated from rebirth, and you've merged with the absolute reality. You're limited from space and time and matter. You realize the immortal absolute. In other words, Brahman's happy being Brahman.
Right.
And so to some extent, there's no more John Reardon. John Reardon's just one of the lives that Brahman went through. One more story that Brahman tells. But it's at rest. So illusion drops away, and the term they use for this is called Satchitananda, which means being, awareness, bliss. It's kind of the correspondence to what Christians call the beatific vision, which is the vision of God. It's the same idea, though, ultimately, of being, awareness, bliss. And it's interesting, the idea that it's all one and it's all there. It's an interesting way of thinking of grief. And this is a passage that I love from the Chandogya Upanishad about loss and death. Never on earth can a man bring back one close to him once he has departed this life, so that he can see him. Yet whatever he may long for among the living and the dead, or whatever else he may long for and cannot obtain, all that he will find if he will but go to the city of Brahman within the heart. For there it is that his real desires are, though now they are covered over with unreality. Any thoughts on that? Does that jump at anybody the way it does at me?
Well, I'm thinking of
I love
William
it.
Wordsworth has a long poem called Intimations of Immortality. But the last part of it kind of goes, what though the radiance which was once so bright be ever taken from my sight? Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind, in the primal sympathy which having been must ever be.
Well, that's
The
gorgeous.
primal sympathy sounds a little bit like that.
Yeah. Well, isn't it, who's the romantic quote about finding something in a flower and eternity in an hour?
Oh, well, that's what's his name? Not
Coleridge?
can't think
No.
of his. I can't think of his name. He's the
I
one
can
that
always
wrote
say.
about the dark satanic mills, I think.
Oh, is that the same one?
one.
Oh, it was William Blake does the Dark Satanic Mills with Jerusalem. The But I like the idea of the city of Brahman within the heart. In other words, in the Atman, in the depth of us, that's where your real desires are. So I think I want a Ferrari. I think I want to go to Vegas. I think I want to have sex with the most beautiful person in the world. I think I want this, that, or the other thing. I want to be rich. I want this, that, or the other thing. But what I really want, that's in reality, the real desire is this Satchitananda. I think those things will give it to me, but none of those things will. They might give me tastes of it. They might be very enjoyable, but they won't fill me.
I guess the idea that maybe in your life right now, in this minute, you can experience the transcendent. Like you don't have to wait 20 years from now. I mean, like Wordsworth says that, to me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. Just like that, you know?
Yeah, the poets get there. The idea is, I think it's this idea that my happiness is not ultimately from my circumstances, but from something that's already inside me, that spirit of Brahman.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, how do you live out the life? There's different forms of what's called yoga, and many of you are familiar with yoga in one sort or another, is a way of exercising and stilling the body and all that. And these are practices designed to clear the mind and bring you to a serene, attached awareness. It also means attached. We're supposed to be detached from a lot of stuff. It means a yoke or a union. And so there's different forms of it. There's paths you can take. One is the path of mental concentration, which is just kind of through meditation. That's Raja Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the path of rational inquiry. Sort of you find the divine life in your intellectual activities. And Karma Yoga is the path of right action. So you find it through doing good deeds. And Bhakti Yoga is the path of devotion to a god or goddess and worshiping and becoming emotionally involved. Whereas, some Advaita doesn't get into the idea of a personal god, and some goes very much with that. But those four paths, does it sound like anything? Can you think of comparable paths in Christianity or elsewhere to the Raja and Jnana and Karma and Bhakti?
Right action sounds like orthopraxy.
Orthopraxy.
Doing the right thing,
Yeah.
something, the right practice or something.
Yeah. When I think of the Christians who are most exercised by working for social justice, for feeding the poor, educating the young, caring for the sick, doing works of mercy, working for social change, I mean, that's kind of our version of karma yoga. And there are some people, and the idea is that we're all wired so that we may be more toward one than the other. And there's some people that so this path of right action, the desire to be a good person and the desire to do right in the world. And then, Bhakti Yoga has to do with the sense of an intimate relationship with God, with the divine. And there are others who are simply trying to think it all through, more intellectual. And then there are those who are simply trying to still themselves. And
would Bhakti Yoga be a priest, a nun?
It could be similar. Yeah, I mean, I think someone like that, or any devout person who likes to pray and has a close sense that Christ lives in them. Someone who, understands God as personal, which, we call God Father. And we talk about the Holy Spirit living within us and a personal relationship with Christ. Christianity is very much in terms of understanding things as personal. And so that's an aspect of Hinduism where you can focus on the personal aspect of a God. And then we've got some...
I like George Harrison.
Yeah. George Harrison was very fascinated with Hinduism, and he wrote the song My Sweet Lord about Krishna, the avatar for Vishnu, the healer. And so since you like that, I want to hear that in a little of the Gayatri Mantra if we have time. We're getting there, though, on time stuff. It's hard to make everything fit a half hour. But although I'm wondering, because I want to get to other things, I would encourage you to go back. I can send you this PowerPoint that the Gayatri Mantra is, I have a setting of it by Deva Premal. It goes on for 2 hours, and it's beautiful music. And it has to do with making sounds. And these are the words in Sanskrit. Aum bu bhuva sva tat savitra varanium bhargodeva shademahi diyoyona prachodayat. And the idea is of a mantra that you repeat this thing over and over again. And it's to bring you in, you're calling on the elements of what is most spiritual of Brahman. So Aum is this primordial creative sound. And then
Right, yeah.
Bhuvasva is like earth, atmosphere, and heaven. Like you're looking at everything. And I don't have a translation right there for Tat Savitra Varanium, but it goes adoration of the glory, splendor, and grace that radiate from the divine light that illuminates the three worlds. We pray to be freed by awakening the life of the universal intelligence in ourselves. So you're asking for all that and repeating that term over and over again. And I'm going to play a little of it just because it's so gorgeous, but those are the words to the Gayatri mantra. I have to go out so I can go back in. We're not going to listen to all 2 hours of the Gayatri mantra. Be happy to know. Let's see. That would be torture. It wouldn't be torturous, but we don't have that kind of time. But this is a beautiful piece, and I'm going to play a couple. Contrast, we could listen next to the whole thing, a little bit of George Harrison's My Sweet Lord, and look at how they're similar or different. So what were your reactions to those two videos?
Well, it seemed to me that George Harrison one, the background is a picture. It's almost ethereal.
Hmm.
He's floating above the clouds.
Yes.
The other one, it's rivers, stones,
Hmm.
ocean, birds, flowers. Uh, there is a sense of a heightened presence of reality,
Hmm.
a stronger, more radiant presence of what is really there. It just has a more powerful presence, so to speak. It's not like up in the clouds. It's
Yeah. So it was
It
much more
was
in. Well, how about you,
very
Caroline? Did you
similar.
have any reactions to either of them?
I like them both. His actually ended up being very similar to the chanting
Hmm.
of the other.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
The
mean, they're
words,
both kind of Western, more Western forms of music.
yeah,
They're sort of making it more friendly to a Western ear than a lot of Indian stuff. I visited a friend, his wife was playing like either Buddhist or Hindu meditation stuff, and I said it sounded like a goat with laryngitis trying to clear its throat. It's kind of, yeah,
a
and
sitar can be an acquired taste.
yeah, and whereas it was sort of more Western friendly. I think what I like
yeah,
is that in the Gayatri mantra, it was this overall. It wasn't trying to have this personal connection. It was just trying to absorb what was there. It was more contemplative. Whereas, what do you hear in the way Harrison views Krishna?
yeah.
He wants to join him, he wants to see him, but it
Yeah.
takes so long.
Yeah. So I say, I want to see you. I want to be with you. I have
Mm,
this longing for you, and which is a lot of love mysticism, which exists in Christianity and other places. And whereas, like John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila write about God being like a spouse or a lover.
mm,
And we have the images in the Song of Songs in the Bible of, God is the one who pursues us and is in love with us. And you could hear some of that. And I mean, I could take out Christian and put in Jesus, and you got a Christian song there,
yeah.
feeling some of those same things. And he does put in Alleluia, which is a Hebrew and Christian term. Let's see, where are we?
Well, the Hindu one or the Indian one is it's more like it is here now kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
here
His is
now.
longing for the future in a way. And it's like, it's all right around me.
Yeah, it's there. You just have to see it. I mean, it's just uh, which I like. I like that better actually. I mean, I like George Harrison a lot, but I like that first one better because it's everything that's here on the earth now, rather than floating kind of above the
Yeah.
the universe or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot, and I think they're both valid ways of being spiritual.
Absolutely.
And what we want to do is find the way to uh, that there are different modes of it. There's this sense of personal connection to God, and there's this sense of this overall, maybe less personal spirituality, but it's all connected. Uh, and so I just want to talk about there's different aspects of Hindu life. I mean, there's prayers, there's fasts, there's designs of things, there's reverence for trees and flowers, and then one group has a strong reference for cows, making pilgrimages. Gurus are, the famous teachers within Hinduism. And I thought it might be fun to look at a couple of the popular festivals uh, in Hinduism. The first one is called Holi or Holy, and they're kind of similar to some stuff that we may know culturally otherwise. Let's see if I can find it on here. Okay, let's get George. Let's get over to, okay. Okay, this is Holi. So this is a celebration of Holi where they have water fights And when I was teaching at St. George's School in Rhode Island, one of the students had a sister who was familiar where to get the holly powders and all, and he brought them into class, and we had a celebration on the last day of class where I told the kids just to wear t-shirts and clothes. They didn't mind getting messy, and we threw the colors around, and we had a lot of fun. I should have called up some of those pictures from my PowerPoint because I've got them. I didn't think of it. I'm thinking of things even as I go, but that was our cultural appropriation. But it was to get the idea of color, and it looks like fun.
Yeah, it looks a lot of fun. I'd like to be there. I'd like to go there. That looks like great, you know.
Yeah, I think
I can get to be a kid again, throw colors around. That's wonderful.
I can't
Yeah,
help.
it's getting in touch with your inner child. We all need a release like that just to become playful and
I
affectionate.
know,
And
yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
There is something really nice about them. This is another one, the Festival of Lights, or Diwali, which is a little bit similar to what we do at Christmas.
At any time of year, a visitor to India can be overwhelmed by its beauty and color. But a visitor in late fall is especially fortunate. The temperature will have cooled down, the monsoons will have not yet begun, and Diwali, the Festival of Lights, is at hand. Diwali is to many Indians what Christmas is to Christians. In essence, it commemorates the victory of the forces of light over the forces of darkness. To experience it fully, get up before dawn and head for the flower markets. Here, flower vendors work feverishly to create garlands of fragrant jasmine that Indians will use to adorn their homes. By dawn, they'll be sold out. Next, head for one of the temples, but go early. Later on in the day, they'll be packed. On your way over, you may see a curious sight. People hunched in front of their doorways, pouring colored sand on the ground. The sand takes the shape of a lotus blossom, a symbol of welcome. And today, millions of symbols of welcome will grace the nation's doorways. Indeed, Diwali is all about sharing. If you're staying in a private home, don't be surprised if the neighbors show up with plates of delicious holiday treats.
Happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali, Virami.
Thank you.
It's also customary for families to go to the temples together on this day. They often dress in fine new outfits, purchased especially for Diwali. And if their outfits inspire you, head for a sari shop. Shops are open on Diwali, and Indian silks are justifiably famous for their beauty. They're just one of the ways India spruces up and gets into the holiday spirit.
So this is an occasion for all of us to rejoice and be with the family and enjoy all the good things in life. So we buy good clothes and make good food.
And everywhere there are lights. If you head to major commercial districts throughout India, you'll find colorful displays comparable to Christmas lights in Western cities. Some cities also put on spectacular public displays of fireworks, like this one in Delhi. But no matter where you are, there are smaller, more intimate fireworks displays. A long day of celebrations is coming to an end, and it's going out with a bang.
Customize and save with Liberty Mutual. Customize and
It's interesting. I mean, they both look like fun. I mean, it looks like Christmas and 4th of July get kind of brought together.
Yeah.
And you know, of course, Christmas was moved to December to appropriate some of the Roman holidays of the winter equinox.
Yeah, the solstice.
Winter solstice, rather. And of the idea, because it's the return of the sun god, that we have the darkest day of the year. And then the light starts coming back. And so they decided to celebrate the coming of Christ as part of that light coming into the world. And here they're doing the same thing. We're celebrating the light. And so, you know, it's not like it's all the same thing, but we do get some common themes coming up.
Well, certainly the in the Episcopal church, in some churches, Episcopal Catholic Church, you have a lot of stained glass windows and the vestments that the priests wear that are all colorful, and they have these colorful kneelers, and that puts me in the mind of that kind of spirit, that festival of colors. It has so much to do with spirituality.
That's true. We have our liturgical colors for different seasons. And certainly the Orthodox and Catholic and Anglican parts of Christianity really involve a feast of the senses. They try to incorporate all of that. The idea of the sacramental, that the bread, the wine, the oil, the water become agents of meeting the divine. And the more Protestant Reformed side of Christianity kind of rejects that, or is suspicious of it turning into idolatry. And so if you go into a Calvinist church, it's all very plain and no decoration, and everything's nothing. It's like nothing to see here, folks. Everything's just very plain. Whereas our idea is, if you go into Emmanuel, you see all these rich colors, and just to be in there, it speaks to some transcendental reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed that Hinduism has become a worldwide phenomenon. It was exported kind of to the West in different sources. And I like to include things about how are we doing on time here? Oh, we're almost done. So you may have to look at some of these things later. I've just the most famous Hindu. I always try to look, when we look at origin, at the saints, the people that are seen as exemplars, and so we have the life of Mahatma Gandhi in India. And here's a wonderful film of Hindu temple in New Jersey. It's just gorgeous, and I encourage you to go back. I'll email you all.
Do you know what Gandhi said about Christians?
What's that?
Perfectly innocent man gives everything that he has for the sake of his enemy, so that his enemy may know peace. I like your Christ, but I do not like your Christians, for they are so unlike him.
That's I've heard things like that. You said, like, I'd become a Christian if I ever met one. Something like, it's like, and well, there's an old saying, the last Christian died on the cross. The rest of us are not. But
just trying.
Yeah. But there's but you have Gandhi, sort of great soul. He had his faults also, but and he and it was a GK church. And Christianity has not been tried and found wanting. It has been tried and found difficult. Or some people say it just hasn't really been tried yet. And typically, overall, it's a very flexible and adaptive religion. It can absorb things with itself, but it has a fundamentalist expressions similar to some other religions. So there are negative things going on, and certainly there's a movement toward Hindu nationalism in India, somewhat similar to Christian nationalism in this country.
I know that Pakistan was created in what, 1948?
In the 1940s to separate, Gandhi wanted Hindus and Muslims to live together, and they finally decided to save bloodshed. They separated the two, created the nation of Pakistan, but there are Muslims in India proper, and some of these people are very violent toward them, and there's a lot of anti-violent Muslim violence. I gave you a video on that and on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is kind of a pusher of Hindu nationalism. He kind of is to India what maybe a Trump would be to the United States. Those kinds of figures seem to be coming up around the world. Figures of sort of retrenchment, hardening, strong identity, and strong sense of us and them. Seems to be a spirit going around the world right now.
I wish it would go away.
So do I. Yes, so do many of us. But those of us who see beyond it have to try not to be corrupted by it, because it does seem to be what the principalities and powers, what's sort of creeping through us at this point in a lot of places, and we have to deal with it. It's been here before, and it's back again. But and so this is just a list of the book. But I promised to end on time, and I've gone a minute over, so we'll.
Do you send us the PowerPoint?
I will, and I also will post the recording on this. Hopefully, it's still recording.
Oh, thank you, Father John, for this.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Next week, we will not meet because it's Halloween, so I figured you'd want the night off.
Okay.
So we'll meet 2 weeks
Pass out candy.
Buddhism.
Okay.
See you in 2 weeks.
So you're gonna
want to
give us
say that,
candy in a week?
Maybe I might spiritually give you spiritual candy.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right. Take
I wanna
care. Have a
say
good
that,
night.
Thank you.
All right,
I think
bye-bye.
that
Good night.
is a tendency for Christians to write off other wisdom traditions, and I think it's beautiful that you can show this so that we just don't write it off. That
Yeah, you give us the richness of what's there.
yeah.
And, I mean, on Facebook, when I advertised this, there were people that said all religion is BS. Then there was one woman came on and said, you can only trust Jesus. Everything else is kind of evil. Don't learn about it. And it's like, no, it's what we meet in Christ can be met sometimes under other names, under forms. God is bigger than us. And God is bigger than our individual cultures and religions. I mean, I'm a Christian. I mean, at the same time, I can experience beauty and goodness. And again, there's the negative side, Hindu nationalism and widow burning and the caste system. Every religion, the other danger is to romanticize the other ones. It's that they're better than we are. It's like, well, we all have our struggles.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
we're all human.
What's that?
We're all human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to work on our karma.
Forget that.
Yes.
Rather than looking at the things we have in common, so many people choose to look at the differences.
Yeah, we tend to want to focus on the difference and create us and them.
Yeah.
As opposed to us versus them, as opposed to it's all us.
All us.
Yes. Well,
Winnie.
good night.